Hello, everybody. Hi there. My name is Matt Lake, and welcome to my reading nook. This is where I like to read all my books when I get a chance to, and I am really happy for a chance now to read them aloud to some people who may appreciate it. I hope that you will enjoy some of these books. Some of the books were read to me when I was very small. I read some of them to my children when they were very small, and I just love the opportunity of sharing some of these. Um, One of the things that I noticed with read aloud books when I used to be read to when I was very little was that I sometimes didn't understand all of the words that were being read. And sometimes I would go and ask what that word meant afterwards, or sometimes I would look it up when I learned how to read and had a dictionary. But while I was actually listening to the stories, I didn't mind that I didn't understand some of the words that were being used. And some of the stories that I will be reading to you this afternoon, they may have long words in them or words that you don't know. Don't worry about that too much. Don't trip over them. I just hope that you enjoy the stories themselves. And I think, as I'm looking across my reading desk here, I think I would like to start out by reading to you from this book here, Frog and Toad All Year. Frog and Toad books, there are four of them, and I loved these books. I collected them all. Um, and they are about two friends, a frog and a toad, and their names are Frog and Toad, which makes it very easy to remember. And they are just very sweet friends, and they like each other, and they do all kinds of nice things for each other. And the first one that I read that I want to read is a story about summertime because it's very warm outside, and it is called Ice Cream. And as you can see, one of the characters has got a big ice cream there. So I'll show you the pictures as I read them to you, but I will start out by just launching right into it. Okay, is everyone sitting comfortably? Are you ready? Okay, let's begin. Ice cream. One hot summer day, Frog and Toad sat by the pond. "I wish we had some sweet cold ice cream," said Frog. "What a good idea," said Toad. "Wait right here, Frog. I will be back soon." Toad went to the store. He bought two big ice cream cones. See that? Toad licked one of the cones. "Frog likes chocolate best," said Toad. "And so do I." Toad walked along the path. A large, soft drop of chocolate ice cream slipped down his arm. "This ice cream is melting in the sun," said Toad. And as you can see from that picture, the ice cream is melting in the sun. Toad walked faster. Many drops of melting ice cream flew through the air. They fell down on Toad's head. "I must hurry back to Frog," he cried. You see that? There they are. The ice cream is melting and falling on Toad's head. More and more of the ice cream was melting. It dripped down on Toad's jacket. It splattered on his pants and on his feet. "Where is the path?" cried Toad. "I cannot see." Look, he can't see. He's covered in ice cream. Oh no. What's going to happen next? Frog sat by the pond waiting for Toad. A mouse ran by. "I I just saw something awful, cried the mouse. It was big and brown. So there's the mouse telling the news to Frog. Something covered in sticks and leaves is moving this way, cried a squirrel. Here comes a thing with horns, shouted the rabbit. Run for your life. There's the rabbit. Run for your life. What can it be? Asked Frog. Frog hid behind a rock. There's Frog hiding behind a rock. Frog hid behind a rock. He saw the thing coming. It was big and brown. It was covered with sticks and leaves. It had 2 horns. What do you think that is? What do you think? It's big and brown. It's covered with sticks and leaves and has 2 horns. What could it possibly be? Frog! Cried the thing. Where are you? Good heavens, said Frog. That thing is Toad. Toad fell into the pond. Splash! He sank to the bottom and came up again. Drat, said Toad. All of our sweet cold ice cream has washed away. There he is. He's not covered with ice cream anymore. Never mind, said Frog. I know what we can do. Frog and Toad quickly ran back to the store. They sat in the shade of a large tree and ate their chocolate ice cream cones together. And that's Frog and Toad. Toad tried to do something very nice for Frog. He tried to fetch some ice cream to him, but he didn't realise the hot sun was going to make him go like that. And then finally, like a big monster, covered with sticks and leaves and horns, there's 2 ice cream cones there. Do you see them? Whoops, there and there. They're the ice cream cones, and he's got sticks and leaves all over him. I thought that was a sweet story anyway. Even though the first set of ice creams they didn't get a chance to eat, even though some little animals got scared because they thought that there was a dangerous creature coming. That was just a nice story. And Frog and Toad stories are all like that. I love Frog and Toad stories. If there are any grown-ups watching here, many of the Frog and Toad books won this the Caldecott Honour Medal. So they're very well thought of. They're great books for beginning readers, and they're very sweet. Some of them they have some adventure in them. Some of them, but they are stories of 2 nice animals that just like each other. And here is a case of Frog doing something nice for Toad. Is another story, and it's from the book Frog and Toad Are Friends, which is a different one. The one that I just read was from Frog and Toad All Year. Frog and Toad Are Friends, and this is a story called The Letter. And it opens with this scene here. Toad is on his porch, and Frog is walking up to his house. Toad was sitting on his front porch. Frog came along and said, "What is the matter, Toad? You are looking sad." "Yes," said Toad, "this is my sad time of day. It is the time when I wait for the mail to come, and it always makes me very unhappy." "Why is that?" asked Frog. Because I never get any mail, said Toad. Not ever? Asked Frog. Not ever, said Toad. It's sad. No one has ever sent me a letter. Every day my mailbox is empty. And that is why waiting for the mail is a sad time for me. Frog and Toad sat on the porch, feeling sad together. Then Frog said, I have to go home now, Toad. There's something I must do. Frog hurried home. He found a pencil and a piece of paper, and he wrote on the paper. He put the paper in an envelope, and on the envelope he wrote, A letter for Toad. Frog ran out of his house. He saw a snail that he knew. Snail, said Frog, please take this letter to Toad's house and put it in his mailbox. Sure, said the snail, right away. There he is, handing the letter to the snail. Can you see what's going to happen? Any idea what's going to happen next? Let's find out together, shall we? Then Frog ran back to Toad's house. Toad was in bed, taking a nap. I think you should get up and wait for the mail some more, said Frog. No, said Toad. I'm tired of waiting for the mail. Frog looked out of the window at Toad's mailbox. The snail was not there yet. Toad, said Frog, you never know when someone may send you a letter. No, said Toad. I do not think anyone will ever send me a letter. Sad. Frog looked out of the window. The snail was not there yet. But Toad, said Frog, someone may send you a letter today. Don't be silly, said Toad. No one has ever sent me a letter before, and no one will send me a letter today. Frog looked out of the window. The snail was still not there. Frog, why do you keep looking out of the window? Asked Toad. Because I'm waiting for the mail, said Frog. But there will not be any, said Toad. Oh, yes, there will, said Frog, because I have sent you a letter. You have? Said Toad. What did you write in the letter? Frog said, I wrote, Dear Toad, I am glad that you are my best friend. Your best friend, Frog. Oh, said Toad, that makes a very good letter. Frog and Toad went out on the front porch. They sat there, waiting for the mail, feeling happy together. Frog and Toad waited for a long time. And 4 days later, the snail got to Toad's house and gave him the letter from Frog. Toad was very pleased to have it. Did you think when Frog gave the letter to a snail, did you think it was going to take a very long time? Because I did. I thought it was very sweet that they were waiting all that time for a letter. Have you got a letter in the mail any time recently? I know that a lot of us are staying in the house a lot, and it's nice to get things in the mail sent to you. So that was one of the reasons I thought that this was a particularly nice story to read at this time. So I've read you two stories about Frog and Toad, and that's, if you're of the age that Frog and Toad stories are best for, you'll probably find that your mom and dad, possibly even your grandparents, had Frog and Toad stories read to them when they were very little, because Frog and Toad they're quite old stories, but they're so sweet. They're all about best friends, and therefore I think it doesn't matter that they were from a very long time ago. But there's one story I'd like to read to you now that's much older than that, and I think it's a lot of fun. It has a lot of long words in it that people may not know. It has words in it that I don't really know, and I'm quite old and I know a lot of words, but I don't think it matters if you don't know a lot of the words here, because this was a story that was written by a famous writer from a very long time ago, 100 years ago, a little more than 100 years ago actually. He wrote this story, and he wrote it for his little daughter, who was far too young to understand most of the words, but I don't think you need to understand them all to have fun with the story. So if, as I tell you this story, you don't know some of the words, don't worry about it. Just listen to the story and wait for the story to unfold, because it's kind of fun. Now, it's called How the Leopard Got His Spots. Now, I don't know whether you've been to the zoo and seen leopards, or you've seen them on the TV or anything, but a leopard is a sandy coloured creature with dark spots. And this story tells of how those spots came to be. Now, it's not how it really happened, but it's a fun story, and it tells a little bit about where the leopard lives and the kind of things that, so the leopard lives with, and there's zebras in it, and there's giraffes in it, and so it's set in this, like, the Africa, and it's all these fun stories going on here. But you have to imagine that because this is the story of how the leopard got his spots, it's going to be set a very long time ago, and at the very beginning, the leopard is different. All the animals are different from how they are now. So this is How the Leopard Got His Spots, and it's a story that was written by a man with a lovely name, Rudyard Kipling. You don't see many people called Rudyard anymore. Rudyard Kipling. It's a lovely old name, and this is a lovely old story, and it's a bit silly, and it's a bit strange, and there's lots of words in it that you probably don't know, but that doesn't matter. So, How the Leopard Got His Spots, it's from a collection of stories called the Just So Stories, and they are by Rudyard Kipling, and these stories were written to be read to Mr. Kipling's little daughter, and he called her Best Beloved. So every so often, as I'm reading the story, I'll be saying Best Beloved, and you know that that's because these are stories that he told to his little daughter. And the story goes a little bit like this. Now, there's some long words, like I said, but roll along with it. I think you'll have fun. How the Leopard Got His Spots by Rudyard Kipling. In the days when everybody started their best beloved, the leopard lived in a place called the High Veld. Remember, it wasn't the low veld, or the bush veld, or the sour veld, but the exclusively bare, hot, shiny High Veld, where there was sand and sandy-coloured rock and exclusively tufts of sandy yellowish grass. The giraffe and the zebra and the eland and the kudu and the hartebeest lived there, and they were exclusively sandy yellow brownish all over. But the leopard, he was the exclusivest, sandiest, yellowish brownest of them all, a greyish, yellowish, catty-shaped kind of beast, and he matched the exclusively yellowish, greyish, brownish colour of the high veld to one hair. This was very bad for the giraffe and the zebra and the rest of them, for he would lie down by a delusively yellowish, greyish, brownish stone or clump of grass, and when the giraffe or the zebra or the eland or the kudu or the bushbuck or the bontybuck came by, he would surprise them out of their jumpsome lives. Yes, he would indeed. And also, there was an Ethiopian with bows and arrows, a delusively a yellowish, greyish, brownish, yellowish man he was then, who lived in the high veld with the leopard, and they too used to hunt together, the Ethiopian with his bows and arrows, and the leopard exclusively with his teeth and claws, till the giraffe and the eland and the kudu and the quagga and the rest of them did not know which way to jump, best beloved. They didn't indeed. After a long time, things lived ever so long in those days, they learned to avoid anything that looked like a leopard or an Ethiopian, and bit by bit the giraffe began it because his legs were the longest. They went away from the high veld. They scuttled for days and days till they came to a great forest, exclusively full of trees and bushes and stripy, speckly, patchy-blatchy shadows, and there they hid. And after another long time, what with standing half in the shade and half out of it, and what with the slippery, slidey shadows of the trees falling on them, the giraffe grew blotchy, and the zebra grew stripy, and the eland and the kudu grew darker, with little wavy grey lines on their back, like the bark on a tree trunk. And so, though you could hear them and smell them, you could very seldom see them, and then only when you knew exactly where to look. They had a beautiful time in the exclusively speckly, spickly shadows of the forest, while the leopard and the Ethiopian ran about over the exclusively reddish, greyish, yellowish high veld outside, wondering where their breakfasts and dinners and their teas had gone. At last they were so hungry, they ate beetles and rock rabbits, and the leopard and the Ethiopian. And then they had big tummy aches, both of them together. And then they met Bavian, the dog-headed barking baboon, who was quite the wisest animal in all of South Africa. Said Leopard to Bavian, it was a very hot day, "Where has all the game gone?" And Bavian winked. He knew. Said the Ethiopian to Bavian, "Can you tell me the present habitat of the aboriginal fauna?" That meant just the same thing, but the Ethiopian always used long words. He was a grown-up. And the Bavian winked. He knew. Then said Bavian, "The game has gone to other spots, and my advice to you, leopard, is to go into other spots as soon as you can." And the Ethiopian said, "Well, that's all very fine, but I wish to know whither the aboriginal fauna has migrated." Then said Bavian, "The aboriginal fauna has joined the aboriginal flora because it was high time for a change. And my advice to you, Ethiopian, is to change as soon as you can." That puzzled the leopard and the Ethiopian, but they set off to look for the aboriginal flora, and presently, after ever so many days, they saw a great, high, tall forest full of tree trunks, all exclusively speckled and spotted and spotified, dotted and splashed and slashed and hatched and cross-hatched with shadows. Say that quickly aloud and you will see it was a very shadowy forest. "What is this," said the leopard, "that is so exclusively dark and yet so full of little pieces of light?" "I don't know," said the Ethiopian, "but it ought to be the aboriginal flora. I can smell giraffe, and I can hear giraffe, but I can't see giraffe." "That's curious," said the leopard. "I suppose it's because we've come in out of the sunshine. I can smell zebra, and I can hear zebra, but I can't see zebra." "Wait a bit," said the Ethiopian. "It's a long time since we've hunted them, but perhaps we've forgotten what they were like." "Fiddle," said the leopard. "I remember them perfectly on the high veld. A giraffe is about 17 feet high, of exclusively fulvous golden yellow from head to foot, and zebra's about 4.5 feet higher, of exclusively grey fawn colour from head to heel." Said the Ethiopian, looking in the spackly shadows of the aboriginal flora forest. "Well, they ought to show up in a dark place like ripe bananas in the smokehouse." But they didn't. The leopard and the Ethiopian hunted all day, and though they could smell them and hear them, they never saw one of them. "For goodness sake," said the leopard at tea time, "let us wait until it gets dark. This daylight hunting is a perfect scandal." So they waited till dark, and then the leopard heard something breathing sniffily in the starlight that fell all stripy through the branches, and he jumped at the noise. And it smelt like a zebra, and it felt like a zebra, and when he knocked it down, it kicked like a zebra, but he couldn't see it. So he said, "Be quiet. Oh, you person without any form, I'm going to sit on your head till morning, because there's something about you I don't understand." Presently they heard a grunt and a crash and a scramble, and the Ethiopian called out, "I've caught a thing that I can't see. It smells like giraffe and it kicks like giraffe, but it hasn't any form." "Don't you trust it," said the leopard. "Sit on its head till morning, same as me. They haven't any form, any of them." So they sat down on them hard till bright morning time, and then the leopard said, "What have you at your end of the table, brother?" And the Ethiopian scratched his head and said, "Well, it ought to be exclusively a rich fulvous orange tawny from head to heel, and it ought to be a giraffe, but it's covered all over with chestnut blotches. What have you at your end of the table, brother?" And the leopard scratched his head and said, "Well, it ought to be exclusively a delicate greyish fawn, and it ought to be a zebra, but it's covered all over with black and purple stripes. What in the world have you been doing to yourself, zebra? I don't know. Don't you know that if you were on the high veld, I could see you for 10 miles off? You haven't any form." "Yes," said the zebra, "but this isn't the high veld, can't you see?" "Well, I can now," said the leopard. "I couldn't all yesterday. How is this done?" "Let us up," said the zebra, "and we will show you." And they let the zebra and the giraffe get up, and the zebra moved away a little to some thorn bushes where the sunlight fell all stripy, and the giraffe moved off to some tallish trees where the shadows fell all blotchy. "Now watch," said the zebra and the giraffe. "This is the way it's done. 1, 2, 3. And where's your breakfast?" Leopard stared, and Ethiopian stared, but all they could see were stripy shadows and blotched shadows in the forest, but never a sign of zebra and giraffe. They just walked off and hidden themselves in the shadowy forest. "Hi, hi," said the Ethiopian. "That's a trick worth knowing. Take a lesson by it, leopard. You show up in this place, in this dark, dark place, like a bar of soap in a coal scuttle." "Ho, ho," said the leopard. "Would it surprise you very much to know that you show up in this dark place like a mustard plaster on a sack of coal?" "Well, calling names won't catch dinner," said the Ethiopian. "The long and little of it is that we don't match our backgrounds. I'm going to take Bavian's advice. He told me I ought to change, and as I've nothing to change except my skin, I'm going to change that. What to? Said the leopard, tremendously excited. To a nice working blackish-brownish colour with a little purple in it, and touches of slaty blue. It will be the very thing for hiding in hollows and behind trees. So he changed his skin there and then, and the leopard was more excited than ever, as he'd never seen a man change his skin before. But what about me? He said, when the Ethiopian had worked out his last little finger to his fine new black skin. Well, you take the Bavian's advice too. He told you to go into spots. Well, so I did, said the leopard. I went into other spots as fast as I could. I went to this spot with you, and it's done a lot of good for me. Oh, said the Ethiopian, Bavian didn't mean spots in South Africa. He meant spots on your skin. Well, what's the use of that? Said the leopard. Well, think of giraffe, said the Ethiopian. Or if you prefer stripes, think of zebra. They find their spots and stripes give them perfect satisfaction. Ooh, said the leopard, I wouldn't look like zebra, not forever so. Well, make up your mind, said the Ethiopian, because I'd hate to go hunting without you. But if you must insist on looking like a sunflower against a black fence, I'll take spots then, said the leopard. But don't make them too big. I wouldn't look like giraffe, not forever so. I'll make them with the tips of my fingers, said the Ethiopian. There's plenty of black left on my skin. Stand over. And then the Ethiopian put his 5 fingers together. There was plenty of black left on his new skin, and pressed them all over the leopard. And wherever the 5 fingers touched anywhere, they left 5 little black marks close together. You can see them on any leopard skin you like, best beloved. Sometimes the fingers slipped and the marks got a little blurred, but if you look closely at any leopard, you'll see that there's always 5 spots of 5 black fingertips. Now you are a beauty, said the Ethiopian. You can lie out on the bare ground and look like a heap of pebbles, or you could lie out on the naked rocks and look like a piece of stone, or you could lie out on a leafy branch and look like sunshine sifting through the leaves, or you can lie right across the centre of a path and look like nothing in particular. Think of that and purr. Well, but if I'm all this, said the leopard, why don't you go spotty too? Oh, plain black's best, said the Ethiopian. Now, come along and we'll see if we can't get even with Mr. 123 Where's Your Breakfast? And so they went away and lived happily ever afterward, best beloved. That is all. Oh, and now and then you'll hear grown-ups say, can the leopard change his spots? I don't think even the grown-ups would keep saying such a silly thing if the leopard hadn't already done it once, do you? But they never will do it again, best beloved. They're quite contented as they are. And that's the end of that story. It's a bit silly, like I said, but it has some facts in it as well, which is, the zebra has stripes so that it can stay hidden, and the giraffe has stripes so it can stay hidden, and the little spots on a leopard. It's called camouflage, and it's how they can stay hidden when they are out in the world, so that they don't get into trouble anywhere. So that is the story of how the leopard got his spots. It had a lot of words and no pictures, so I'm going to give you the next story I'm going to read you is an old story. But it's a lot of fun, and it has a lot of pictures in it, and this is one of my favorites, and it is Where the Wild Things Are, and it's written and the pictures are done by Maurice Sendak, and it is a lovely story about a little boy called Max who gets into trouble, and then he goes off and has adventures. Okay, I'm going to see if I can read this to you like this. I will show you the picture. Here you go. There we go. And it reads, The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind And another. He's making mischief there. Look at that. His mother called him Wild Thing. And Max said, I'll eat you up. So he was sent to bed without eating anything. You see, he's not happy about that at all. That very night, in Max's room, a forest grew. And grew. And grew until the ceiling was hung with vines, and the walls became the world outside. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he smiled off through the night and day. And in and out of weeks and almost over a year to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. And there's Max. He's seeing all of this. Till Max said, "Be still," and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all. And they made him the king of all wild things. And now, cried Max, let the wild rumpus start. And here they are having the wild rumpus. That's what a wild rumpus looks like. And they're having a wild, wild rumpus. They're having more of a wild rumpus. And here's more of a wild rumpus. They're still rumpusing. Now stop, said Max, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around him, from far away, across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up. We love you so." And Max said no. The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. waving there. And sailed back over a year, and in and out of weeks, and through a day, and into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. Wasn't that a lovely adventure? I really like Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. The pictures are lovely, and the story is, it's like when you get carried away with your imagination. Pictures are great. I really enjoyed that one. So that's Where the Wild Things Are. And we've got about 5 more minutes before it's time to say goodbye. And what I wanted to do was to read you one more Frog and Toad story. And this is one of my favourites because it's about cookies, and I love cookies. And it is called Cookies. And you remember Frog and Toad. It's from this other Frog and Toad book called Frog and Toad Together by Arnold Lobel. This story is about the two friends, Frog and Toad, who are always doing nice things for each other. And this is this is the life story I'm going to tell you. So get ready now. It's called Cookies, and it's about being nice to each other, and how sometimes that goes a bit wrong. So, Cookies. Toad baked some cookies. "These cookies smell very good," said Toad. He ate one. "And they taste even better," he said. Toad ran to Frog's house. "Frog, Frog," cried Toad, "taste these cookies that I have made." Frog ate one of the cookies. "These are the best cookies I have ever eaten," said Frog. Frog and Toad ate many cookies, one after the other. "You know," said Frog, with his mouth full, "I think we should stop eating. We shall soon be sick." They are eating away. "You're right," said Toad. "Let us eat one last cookie, and then we'll stop." Frog and Toad ate one last cookie. There were many cookies left in the bowl. "Frog," said Toad, "let us eat one very last cookie, and then we will stop." Frog and Toad ate one very last cookie. "We must stop eating," cried Toad, as he ate another. "Yes," said Frog, reaching for a cookie. "We need willpower." "What is willpower?" asked Toad. "Willpower is trying hard not to do something that you want to do," said Frog. "You mean like trying not to eat all of these cookies?" asked Toad. "Right," said Frog. Frog put the cookies in a box. "There," he said, "now we will not eat any more cookies." "But we can open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. Frog tied some string around the box. Down there, he said, "now we will not eat any more cookies." "But we can cut the string and open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. Frog got a ladder. He put the box up on a high shelf. "There," said Frog. "Now we will not eat any more cookies." "But we can climb the ladder and take the box down from the shelf and cut the string and open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. Frog climbed the ladder and took the box down from the shelf. He cut the string and opened the box. Frog took the box outside and shouted in a loud voice, "Hey birds, here are cookies!" Birds came from everywhere. They picked up all the cookies in their beaks and flew away. "Well, now we have no more cookies to eat," said Toad sadly. "Not even one." "Yes," said Frog, "but we have lots and lots of willpower." "You may keep it all, Frog," said Toad. "I'm going home now to bake a cake." Well, it sounds to me as though Toad didn't have very much willpower, but he certainly liked to have his baked goods, didn't he? So, I like that story because, I don't know, when there's a cookie on a plate, I always want to pick at it and have another one. So there you go. That's been a collection of some of the old-timey stories that I used to enjoy when I was small, and you can tell from how old I look now that this was a very long time ago. And this was some of the stories that I used to enjoy telling to my children when they were small. And I used to work in a school, and I would tell children at the school those stories too. I hope you enjoyed them all. If you enjoyed them enough, maybe I'll come back and read some more to you at another time. But for right now, I will just let you know that the stories that I read to you today were from these books here, Where the Wild Things Are, by Maurice Sendak. A fantastic book. I really recommend that one. The first one was from Frog and Toad All Year by Arnold Lobel. Frog and Toad All Year. Another story from Frog and Toad Together, also by Arnold Lobel. And Frog and Toad Are Friends. And the other story was from Rudyard Kipling, and it was the Just So stories, and we read How the Leopard Got His Spots. And that's about all for now. Thank you very much for joining me for those stories. I hope that if you enjoyed them, you'll let us know in the comments there, and maybe we can do this again sometime. But for now, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us, and have a lovely weekend. Get out if you can into the sun today. It's a lovely day outside. Okay, bye-bye.